I think I made 100 applications and nobody was willing to hire me. Right now, I'm working in a security guard job, but there's this principle of whatever your hand finds to do it at your very best. I'm not a strong believer in work-life balance. I believe in being present. Within 18 months, he changed my trajectory. He made me a better person.
And you mentioned that you invest in the founder, the people, rather than a business idea. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
And so they got to meet the founder, hanged out with the founder, and they almost like whatever the founder is then doing, they would invest in. Because
welcome to the Success Stories with Mukaddas. You're here because, like me, you want to be better every single day and live a healthy, happy, and fulfilling life. Before getting on to this episode, I want to take a moment and say a huge thank you. Because of you liked, shared, and subscribed to this channel, I achieved first of my milestone of 1,000 subscribers. And I couldn't achieve that without your help. Today, I'm thrilled and honored to have Sola, who is an investor, founder, author, speaker, and advisory board member. And I'm very much excited to have a conversation with him. So please help me welcoming Sola.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I read your book called The Art of Managing Up. And I loved reading your stories. And please let us know who you are and what inspires you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me again. So Sola Osinoiki, background is I studied civil engineering in a university in Nigeria. So originally, my parents are from Nigeria. I was born in London though. And when I was 8 years old, my parents went back to Nigeria and took me with them. And then I studied civil engineering in Nigeria, came back to the UK. When I got to the UK, there were no jobs in civil engineering. That was in the early 90s. And so I started working as a security guard. And I did that for a couple of years. And then one night I got a lucky break where I saw on a notice board, they were looking for graduate recruitment. So I applied to the University of Manchester and I got to work for the university in a 1-year placement. After the 1 year, they asked me whether I would like to stay on and create my own job. So I did. And I worked as a technical clerk. And then from there, it's kind of a combination of different roles in different organizations, and eventually became a programmer and then went to do some consulting. So I worked for Accenture, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And my last 2 roles was working at a company called Deliveroo, where I worked as the head of people operations globally. And then I went to work for a technology investor called Prosus and Naspers. That's kind of, and now I work for myself as a consultant, coach. I sit on a few advisory boards and I do a bit of angel investments.
Oh, thank you so much. And you have such a great, a lot of experiences in big corporation and also investing and in different countries. I'm also very interested in knowing when you came back from Nigeria to the UK, did you face any challenge in getting maybe visa? Because as being a Chinese person, when I came here after finishing my study, there are some selection. I need to select which job to take. I need to get visa, a lot of things. So did you face some similar challenges when you came back?
No, but because I was British born, so I was born in England. So coming back to the UK was like coming home. So because I'm a British citizen, but of Nigerian origin. So I didn't face any of that. But I still think that when you're coming in, having spent a lot of time outside the country, coming back in, there's a bit of a challenge to kind of get back into the ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you started with being a security guard.
Yeah, I started as a security guard because what happened was when I came back to the UK, there was a recession on, and so nobody was hiring civil engineers. I think I made 100 applications and nobody was willing to hire me. So I thought to myself, I can't sit at home and do nothing. And so I went to work in security, and I did that for about 2 years. And while I was doing it, like I said earlier, I got this opportunity to go and do a graduate recruitment role.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And when I was reading your book, you said you want to be the best in your job while you are doing security guard. Of course, you had a bachelor's degree and you studied very well. And being a security guard, probably not your ambition. It's not your future. So while being appreciative for your current role at that time, what inspired you to be the best in your job and have a plan for future?
Yeah, I think it's a principle that I believe and I live by now. there's this principle of whatever your hand finds to do it at your very best. And I think that's how I looked at it. I was like, right now I'm working in a security guard job, but it doesn't define me. I don't allow the job I'm doing to define me. I am who I am. Regardless of whether I wear a uniform as a security guard, I still have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. But at the moment, this is the work that I find my hand to do. Now, what's very interesting is that when I went for the interview for the graduate placement, the guy who interviewed me, his name is John Wilson, he said to me, "Oh, what have you been doing for the last 18 months?" I said, "I've been working in security." And he said, "Okay, now I'm going to change the interview because I want to understand whether you were fully in that job or you just did the job." And he said, "Okay, if you were the one setting up security for University of Manchester, that's now your interview question." And so sometimes I think that's the key thing, is that whatever you're doing, you put your whole person into it, and then you get the best out of it. You get the best out of it, the company gets the best out of you. And so it doesn't matter what the job is, you have to put your best in and you get the best out for you and for your employer. And I think what struck him the most is that in my application form, I wrote, "I'll give you 101% commitment." And it was like, what does that look like? And I was like, well, I'll go over and above. I'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I think that's marked my career, really. It's like that idea of can-do spirit. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. It doesn't matter how big the client is or how small the client is. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to do my best work to get the best outcome for you and satisfaction for me.
Really inspiring story, because whatever you do, if you love it and you give your commitment and you can get the maximum result. And yeah, it's like very interesting. After that, you had your graduate scheme and you worked in Accenture. And one of your podcasts, I noticed that you mentioned a very interesting point there, and the power of CV.
Yeah.
And can you tell us more about it?
Well, your CV is like the description of who you are, right? And sometimes, actually, these days I link CV to LinkedIn. Like, your LinkedIn profile represents you. Like, a lot of people like your CV, but they kind of trust your LinkedIn profile more, because you can't lie on your LinkedIn profile. Because if I went in there and said I was the CEO of Accenture, everybody would be like, no, you wasn't, right? So I think your CV represents the story of your journey, like where you're coming from, what have you done, what impact have you had? And it's not just about telling people what you've done, it's also about telling them what you achieved. Because at the end of the day, we could all have title graduates, right? But what did you do with that title? What did you do with that role? How did you impact people around you? And what were the results that you achieved? That's the story you want to tell on your CV. Because your CV is not just a document, it's actually a story. Telling the story of your life, telling the story of your journey. It actually tells the story of your ups and the downs and the journeys you've traveled on. And if you write your CV well to convey a story, rather than just say, this is the job I've done, they have a big impact on people.
Yes, I totally believe the power of CV as well. And if you've done like whatever you've done, and if you strive to achieve the best, and of course your CV would look the best as well. After the graduate scheme, did you work in PwC?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And there is a very interesting story from the book. They said in the second day, you talked to the bosses of boss.
Yeah.
You said, when I can get the promotion, right?
Yes.
It was like from
that was actually at GlaxoSmithKline. So when I got to GlaxoSmithKline, after I worked for the College of Law, got to GlaxoSmithKline. And one of the things I always tell people is, like, when you get to a new job, try and understand what it takes to get to the next level. Not that you're not satisfied, but you just need to know what you're aiming for. So I think day 2, I asked about the band, and I realized, I came in at the top of the band. So I was like at the top of the band. And so I went to my boss's boss, and I said to him, what do I need to do to get promoted? And he looked at me and he laughed. He was like, well, you have to be in your job for 5 years. And I thought to myself, no, I don't want to be in my job for 5 years before I get promoted. And so I actually went down and I started working really hard. And actually within those 5 years, I got promoted 3 times. Because you have to kind of understand how your organization works. And I was lucky that GlaxoSmithKline was an organization that allowed you to experiment, to try new things. So I joined GlaxoSmithKline as a senior analyst programmer. I got promoted to a lead analyst programmer. And then when I realized that jobs were going to India, I decided that I was going to switch, and I moved into business analysis. And then again, I moved from business analysis to project management. And this was all within the same company and different departments, but in the same company. So I think that's kind of the opportunity that I just said to myself, what are the opportunities that are in front of me and what can I take a hold of? Now, everybody has a different journey that they go on. Some people I worked with in GSK are still there today. But that's their journey. And my journey was different. My journey was more of exploration, see the world. When I was working for GSK, I went to Stevenage, I went to Ware, I went to Philadelphia, I went to North Carolina. So I was always this adventurous worker of like, if we're global, why don't I see the world through the company?
And so what excites you during that time to going global? Like, did you enjoy traveling, or you just had a very explorative mindset?
I think I love traveling. I think my wife used to joke that if I worked at a checkout in Tesco, that I'll find a way to travel, right? So, because even when I worked security, I didn't stay in one place. I actually traveled around the country working, because I would put my hand up for any opportunity. And I think that's it. I think I do have a desire to travel. I love traveling. And I think I've been to about 49 countries around the world. But I think it's more the curiosity about people, engaging with culture, engaging with different dynamics, seeing how people really live, and seeing how you can get the best out of people because you're in their dynamic.
One thing that came into my mind after you mentioned like a lot of travelings, and I know you have a very lovely family, but how you manage to like have a balance in between traveling and working in a different job and like being very ambitious. I guess you've been working very hard as well. So like how you manage to keep that balance?
So I always say that I'm not a strong believer in work-life balance. I believe in being present. And so if I'm traveling, then I focus on my traveling. But when I'm home, I focus on my family. So I think being present in the moment, enjoying the moment, like right now we're doing a podcast. It would be a bit funny if I was now on my phone and messaging or trying to catch up on my WhatsApp, right? So I believe in being present. So when I am with family time, let's make it family time. And I love my kids, like people, I just recently became a grandfather also. And I love my grandchild. I love spending time with him, but I also love my work. So it's kind of trying to find the balance and to be present, like be present in the moment, to enjoy the moment that you're in. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us we're too multitasking, thinking about too many things at the same time. But actually, if I'm in this moment with you, we're having this podcast, I am present in this moment. So if I'm having a family dinner, I want to be present in that moment. And I think by doing that, my wife and I have worked a way that works for our family. Every family is different, but for our family, we found a way that works. My wife also runs her own business, so we're both busy people, but we've had to make sacrifices and decisions along the way to make sure that our family enjoys our presence.
And this is the lesson that I've learned from the book called The Power of Now.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite books as well. Like the power, like if we try to be at present, it's already a meditation. We can focus on focus on the work we do, and we can develop a very good relationship with the people we are spending time with. Anything that influenced you to develop the power of now or being at present?
I think what maybe influenced me was the reality of the work I was doing. So I realized I loved my work and I was willing to do anything for my work, but I also loved my family. And so I was trying to find this work-life balance and I couldn't find it. And so then I thought to myself, what's going to work? And I think I probably read somewhere, I don't know where, it was somebody who quoted it, like, be present in the moment. And I started practicing being present. And the more I practiced it, the more I enjoyed it. And the more I realized that actually this is better than trying to work-life balance. Because even when you're a 9-to-5 job, sometimes you have to work a little bit longer, then you have travel time, And people have different views about COVID. But for me, my family enjoyed COVID. For those of us who were, because at the time I was living in Berlin in Germany, we enjoyed it because we could work and then spend time together and be present and go on walks together. I love nature. Go on walks together, go down to the lake, go into the forest. Everybody had their own path on how they do it. And I think that really kind of struck a bell with me in terms of the power of being present in the moment. is more powerful than anything else, because if I'm present in the moment, you're telling me something, I can hear you. My brain is not 10,000 places in different places, but I'm actually listening to you. I'm in the audience of one, if you like. It's very, very powerful. And so that's probably where it came from. I think it just came from this desire that I want to be a good family man. I want to be a good worker. I want to have recreation time. So how do I fit all of these things into 24 hours?
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm still practicing the power of now being at present. Like when I go for a walk, for example, try to feel the wind and smell the flowers, enjoy the sun, the warmth as well. And when I'm with my loved ones, I try to listen to them instead of like looking at my phone, or just to be present and really trying to be helpful. And this really helps me to reduce my stress as well. Not only productive at work and develop this good relationship, but it really helps me to reduce my stress because I enjoy everything what I do. I'm also curious to know like how this practicing being at present helped you to excel at work.
I think it helped me excel at work. So I don't know about you, and I know the world is constantly changing. We're now living in a more hybrid world. And so therefore we probably do more meetings than we can ever imagine, right? And I think when I started trying to be present in a meeting, I don't know if you've been into a meeting, laptops are open, phones are open. I think it was Simon Sinek that said, if you put your phone on the table face up, you're saying to the person in front of you that my phone is more important. I might be expecting a message. I might be expecting something. But if you say to yourself, no, I'm coming into this meeting, it's 30 minutes, I'm going to head down, I'm going to listen to everybody, feel the conversation, be in the conversation, I realize that you can add more value because you're present in the moment. Like sometimes, I don't know whether you've seen people, they will say, oh, repeat that again, because they weren't fully listening, right? Or they were too busy typing an email while they're listening to you. And there's this view that we can multitask. I'm more of the view that we don't really multitask. We just change tasks quickly. And so I'm talking to you, but I'm also breathing. So yes, you can say I'm multitasking, but actually my brain is subconsciously breathing and I'm consciously talking to you. And so when you're trying to multitask, one moves into a subconscious and one moves into a conscious. So I could be listening to you, but I'm not hearing you because I'm multitasking. I'm also thinking. But I think the whole idea of being present in the moment, and I work with a lot of clients, I coach a lot of people, I do mentoring. I need to hear them and be fully present, not trying to solution for them, but hear them and then we solution together. So I think using that act of being present has helped me become more productive for the people I'm working with. And because I have a lot of clients that I work with, so I'm not working with the same people all the time, I'm working with different people, being present in the moment, them being fully listened to, does help us to make a lot more progress, I think.
Thank you so much. And I think we covered a lot with this topic, like being at present, because you mentioned mentoring and how you went on to mentoring from your corporate job.
Yeah, I think the reason why I got into mentoring was actually from the very first job I have. When I was working as a security guard, there was a lady called Amanda. She was my supervisor, but she was also my mentor. She coached me. Because think about it, I went to university to study, but I didn't know much about security. But it's not just wearing a uniform. There are many other things about it. There's clocking in, there's clocking out, there's following a particular route, there's being aware, and all these things I didn't know nothing about. But Amanda was the person who coached me, mentored me. And so I learned I came across this idea of there's some people who help you do your job better. I call them job mentors. And there's some people that help you navigate your future. I call them career mentors or life mentors. They mentor you beyond your present job. So Amanda was helping me understand how to do my present job and to do it very well. But I think as I went on in my career, particularly when I got to GSK, I met career coaches who were like, what do you want to be in 5 years' time? I was like, I've never thought about it. They said, sit down, take the time, think about where you want to be in 5 years' time, and then work backwards to where you are right now and see how you can get there. So I think because I benefited from the whole process of mentorship. And I think, every job I've had a mentor, somebody who's kind of guiding, because the whole idea and how I define a mentor is somebody who's been where you're trying to go and can show you the shortcuts to get there. And I've had some amazing mentors on my journey. My very current mentor is a guy called Barry. And when I was in PwC, he was given to me, actually. He was given to me and said, if you want to make your next promotion, this guy needs to basically take care of you and show you the ropes. And he basically changed my trajectory. Within 18 months, he changed my trajectory. He made me a better person. And I'm still very, very grateful to him. I thank him, and he's like, no need to thank me. But really, really, he transformed me because he'd been there. He'd been where I was trying to get to. And he realized that the path I was on was not going to get me there. Or it was going to get me there, but it was going to take a long time. And so what Barry did was, hey, he showed me a shortcut. He said, if you go left and you go right, you'll get there. But hey, if you go straight through, you get there also. And I think that's the power of mentorship. People who can show you the shortcuts to where you're trying to get to. And people always ask me, how do you find a mentor? I think, again, I'm going to quote Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek said, you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, will you mentor me? It doesn't work like that. You got to get to know people. You got to understand what their values are, what direction they're going, where they've been. Is where they've been where you want to go? And then if there is a connection point, then you can ask, and then it kind of flows out like a journey.
Yeah, definitely. I really believe in the power of mentorship. And there are so many questions that I want to ask regarding this. Did you have a kind of challenge when you try to find a mentor during your journey?
I would say in my journey so far, I haven't really had a challenge. I think I've been opportune, lucky to be in the right place, in the right organizations, because a lot of my mentors, at least particularly in the beginning of my career, they came from within my organization. Mm-hmm. So when I was at the College of Law, my mentor was in the organization. When I was at GSK, I had 3 mentors when I was in GSK. When I went to Accenture, actually Accenture is the one place where I didn't have a mentor in the business. I had a coach, but not a mentor. But when I got to PwC, there were mentors all around me. So I think if you work for a large organization, there is a possibility that you will find people who are going the direction you want to go. Now, a lot of people work in smaller organizations, they work in startups, and so you have to go beyond, yourself. But luckily, we have the internet today, right? When I started out in my career, the internet wasn't born properly then. Now we have the internet, we have LinkedIn, and one thing I will warn people, don't just drop into somebody's LinkedIn and say, would you mentor me? It doesn't work like that. I think get to know them, get to understand them, see how you can add value to them. And I think that's the best way.
Thank you so much. So we don't need to wait for having a challenge to seek for a mentor.
No.
We if we have a ambition and we have a goal to achieve, and we can seek for people who had a similar experience and get to know them and to be very specific, I guess, about what you want to achieve as well. Because some people came to me and say, can you help me? And without knowing their business, their problems, how I can help, right? So can you tell us more about your mentorship style? How do you mentor?
So I think you made a good point, right? So I think the good point you made is that when you're seeking mentorship, it's imperative that you know what you want the mentor to do for you. Because a lot of people come up to me and say, mentor me. I was like, okay, so what? And they were like, oh, I don't know. So then we have to then kind of understand what the problem is. Sometimes you just need a mentor to hold you accountable to do the goals that you said you're going to do. Sometimes you need a mentor to kind of chaperone you or challenge you, right? Challenge you to the next level. Or sometimes you need a mentor to kind of show you the road because you're kind of stuck. So how do I mentor? I think I do it collaboratively. Because a mentor is not a dictator. I'm not going to dictate which way you're going to go. I'm just going to tell you my story, how I was able to achieve it, how I was able to overcome a similar challenge, and then we'll together explore how my experience applies to your experience and how you can find a way through. That's probably how I do it. It's really about the dialogue, the interaction, your own intention. So when I start mentoring people, I give them a document to fill out, which includes what do you need help with? what's your 1 year goals? What's your 5 year goals? What's your strengths? What's your weaknesses? What's the opportunities? What's the threats that you see? So when you've documented all of that, it gives us a springboard to now start to have a conversation. And I also say to them, what do you really want to work on? Like, because you could work on many things, right? And I also believe my own mentorship, I believe in holistic mentoring. I don't just mentor you about your career or your business. I mentor you about your career, your business, your life goals, your health goals. I bring it all in as a package because I think you are always a whole person. And I know for some people say, oh, you should have a mentor for different aspects of your life. That is also possible, because the same way you can have a life coach, you can have a health coach, you can have a mental wellness coach, you can have a career coach, you can have many of these things. But I think sometimes when you bring it together, sometimes, not always, when you bring it together, you get more traction, because now you're not trying to work on different goals with different people, you're working it together. Even if in the end, because I've had people I was coaching or mentoring that I said to them, actually, for this particular aspect of your life, you need an expert. So we agreed that, look, you go speak to an expert who's an expert in this field, because I'm not an expert. But I think at this point, we need some intervention, and I'm not the right person to give that intervention. So I think a good mentor would push you in the right direction to say, hey, at this point, you need extra help that I can give you. Maybe you need to go speak to this person. Maybe you need to go and do that course. So I think the whole idea is that it's a partnership journey that you're going together. Like, remember, you're going on a journey somewhere and the mentor's been there. That's the whole thing about mentorship. Now, people confuse mentorship with coaching. So coaching, I don't have to have been there. Like, I'm just gonna cheer you on. Like, come on. Like, you can do this. You're great at it. Keep going. Whereas a mentor is like, well, let's say I was mentoring you about podcasting, which I haven't done before. Then I would say to you, okay, when I was a podcaster, to get to 2,000 subscribers, here's what I did. And so you come along to me and say, I want to get to 2,000 subscribers. It becomes an easy conversation, because I can say, well, when I did it, I did this, I did that, I did that. That's mentorship. A coach will say, hey, I've never got to 2,000 before, but I know you can do it. I believe in you. You got this. And you know what? Have you tried TikTok? Have you tried, you understand? So a coach kind of gives you alternatives, whereas a mentor has actually done it. And that's the difference.
That's a very good point to mention, the difference between coach and mentor.
Yeah.
And we need to understand who works the best and what we need, right?
And sorry, just one more point. And I think maybe one other thing to remember is that sometimes your mentorship relationship becomes a coach-mentor. So I would say that I work more as a mentor-coach. So I've been to where you're trying to get to, but then I can also use questions to kind of help you get even further in where you want to go. So sometimes you need a blend, not just one or the other.
Thank you. And in your book as well, The Art of Managing Up, you also put some really good questions.
Yeah.
And before going on to the questions, I want to ask some why you ask these questions, but what inspired you to write this book?
So I was inspired to write the book because one of my mentees sat across the table from me one day and said to me, you do this mentorship thing a lot, but you haven't documented it. You haven't shared it broader. And so what I did was I did a webinar about the whole process of managing up. And I realized that actually in my story, I've had to manage my managers to get what I wanted. And so I basically just told my story. And then that gave the inspiration to document it in the book, and then put questions at the end of it to help people really think through it and really get the best benefit out of it. So that's the journey of the book.
So you asked this question: have you ever highlighted the people who have helped you along the way?
Yeah.
And what's the benefit of asking this question from ourselves?
I think the benefit there's multiple sides, but let's just talk about two sides. One, the first benefit, when you take your time to sit down and highlight people who've helped you along the way, it makes you realize that you didn't get here by accident. That's the first thing. So if I look at my career, I realized that there were people that helped me along my way. When I was working as an analyst programmer in the legal department, one of my friends, my colleague, she was a peer coach, a peer mentor, whatever you want to call it, her name was Louise. And she said to me, Sola, you like people. You help people. You're sitting on all these grievance boards, disciplinary boards. You're supporting people. why did you move to HR? And I was like, never thought of it. She said, there's a job opening in HR, in the payroll department. Why don't you apply and go for it? So I applied and I got the job. And that was it. That was how I got into HR. And then I've spent almost 25 years in HR technology. And so me now looking back, I think to myself, how did I get into HR? Actually, it was because Louise told me to do it. And so then I realized that actually no man's an island. There are people in your life that you probably owe a debt of gratitude to. And there are people in your life that you probably just want to drop a note to say, hey, you know what? Thank you for what you did, right? That's the first reason. So it's more a reflection of gratitude and recognition that you didn't get here by yourself. The second thing is, it highlights to you that if you got to where you got to because people helped you, then you ask yourself the question, who am I helping today? And you can almost do the other job of, who am I actually helping, and take a log. And if you don't see many people in your inventory, then maybe today is the day to start. Today is the day to think, I'll give that word of encouragement to my colleague, to my junior, to my boss, because people think that mentoring and coaching is one way, but I don't know whether you've ever heard of the concept reverse mentoring, where a boss is mentored by their staff member. So when I was at PwC, we did a lot of that, where new graduates, fresh blood, millennials, if you like, would mentor people who had been in the company for 20 years. So it's called reverse mentoring, where the younger person is teaching them about TikTok or, things that they as experts might not know about because they've not been exposed to it. And I think it really works really well. So I think I asked that question, one, for people to take a log both ways. Who are you helping? Who's helped you? And then make you realize that you didn't get here by yourself, and make you aware that along your journey, there are people that are going to help you and there are people you're going to help, and be intentional about it. So I wanted to kind of drive out the idea of intentionality.
Thank you so much. This is a very good question to ask, I believe, because being appreciative, being thankful is not only the thing that can bring us like good energy. I practice it daily to get the good energy, but it also reminds us who helped us. And if we are more appreciative, and we can get more help, and it also reminds us that's the best thing that we can do as well to help others to achieve better results. And I can see that you are also a very appreciative person. In your book, you also thank to your mentees, and what you've learned during your mentorship from your mentees.
I think I've learned a lot from my mentees. I believe that mentorship shouldn't be a one-way traffic. It should be I give, but I also receive. And I would say I don't think I would have had the courage to set up a business around mentorship and coaching if it wasn't for one of my mentees who said you should. I don't think I would have had documented my process around mentorship if one of my mentees didn't say, hey, I'll help you, take what's in your head and put it down on paper. And there are many other things that happen, like along the way, where mentees have been so helpful to me. And I think what that also drives for me is that when people have invested in me, I want to invest back in them. So it's really about recognizing other people's investment, and a lot of my mentees have really, really helped navigate and chart my own course to where I am today.
Thank you. And I wish I had a mentor like that, but I'm very thankful for my journey. I had like amazing people to help me with as well. And I really recommend people to have a search for the mentor as well when they feel stuck or when they have ambition. And of course, it's like mutual learning opportunity as well. So when we go back to that book, you mentioned that there are two kind of environments in the working environment. So it's healthy environment, it's unhealthy environment, and you didn't want to use toxic environment.
Yeah.
But how do you define healthy and unhealthy working environment?
So the way I define healthy environment, let's start with the positive, right? The way I define a healthy environment is that you're doing your job, your boss recognizes you're doing your job, there's a good chemistry between the two of you, your personalities don't clash, your expectations of what a boss should do is your boss's expectation of what they should do. And it's kind of healthy. There's no tension. It's like, it's a good working relationship. If you make a mistake, they tell you, they correct you, you take the correction. It's not personal. It's kind of like, hey, you made a mistake, fix it, let's go on. Unhealthy, on the other hand, is more like you're unappreciated, you're undermined, you're not seen for who you are. You can't really show up as your full self, because if you show up as your full self, they're like, you're threatening, or you're challenging, or you're asking too many questions. And I think that constitutes an unhealthy environment, because there's the chemistry between you, and I'm talking first of all between you and your boss. Now, the wider unhealthy environment could be, multiples of that, right? It's not safe for you to ask a question. It's not safe for you to look stupid, if you like. I remember I worked, and I won't say the company's name, but I worked in one company, and I put my hand up to ask a question, and my boss said to me, "You're too junior to be asking questions." Oh, no. If I want to ask, if somebody who was supposed to have a question, they should be at this level, and you're not at that level, so shut up.
Oh no. In
public, there were about 20 people in the room. Oh, no. That's an unhealthy environment. That's an unhealthy culture. Whereas in a healthy culture, like when I was working at Deliveroo, it doesn't matter how old you are, what race you are, what job you are doing, everybody's voice counted. At least when I was working there, everybody's voice counted. Everybody had a good idea. Didn't matter where the idea came from, it got a looking at. There was no bad ideas. It was more like, hey, let's do what we can do to make this company better. And that came from the top. So Will Shu, who was the CEO, he had this view of, hey, we're all in this together. So we didn't have offices. People just mucked together. I remember sitting just across the desk from the chief people officer, just across the way from the chief financial officer, the chief legal officer. We're all in this open plan space. And literally, if I needed to get something done, I'd literally walk over to their desk and say, okay, guys, we need to fix this. And we all just stand around the table and get it fixed. That's a very healthy culture. And there are many other places I've worked like that, where it's very healthy, it's very engaging, it's very encouraging. Your boss wants you to do well. Your boss is looking for opportunity. There's no blame culture. Even if you get it wrong, it's like, okay, we got it wrong, how do we fix it? Rather than, oh, well, you got it wrong, so now you're tainted. And I think I try to create that for the teams I've worked with. And I've been opportunity to work with amazing people, talented people who, even though I stopped working with them, we still stay in touch, we still connect, we still talk, because it was a mutual benefit. And I think if you create, and I think healthy or unhealthy cultures are created. And so you've got to be intentional to create a healthy one-on-one culture, a healthy team culture, a healthy department culture, and then a healthy company culture. Mm-hmm. And if you miss a healthy company culture, you can still have a good department culture, you can still have a good team culture, you can still have a good one-on-one culture. So you could be in a toxic world, but actually you and your manager have a very good chemistry and you really understand that. And I have opportunity to work with some people like that. I hope that answers that question.
Of course, yes. I've learned a lot about healthy and unhealthy working environment, and it reminds me some of my working experience as well. And I try to be positive all the time, but sometimes it works as a team. So everyone try to bring good energy, very supportive. People can excel and achieve great result in that kind of supportive and respected environment. But if the environment is getting a bit not very supportive, not respected, or trying to push you down, and you don't want to put all your energy, and you don't feel excited about your work, and probably it's not the best to stay in that working environment. And you also mentioned that if it's unhealthy, if it doesn't work out, how you manage to plan your next journey.
Yeah. Managing, I talk about knowing when it's time to bow out.
Yes.
That's the term I use. So sometimes you can be in an unhealthy culture and you can lay low and keep out of trouble. But sometimes
30 kilometers per hour.
Just stay within the zone. But actually, sometimes you realize that this is not going to work. not going to work long term. And so you begin to gradually plan your exit, either look for another job or maybe your boss moves on. And sometimes I've had to tell my boss, like my team manager, that we can't work together. So we need to find a different route. But most of the time, sometimes it's unfortunate that you have to actually exit the organization. And that's what I call knowing when it's time to leave. And so sometimes you have to plan that. You need mentors for that, coaches for that. So you don't just jump out and just say, I don't like this job, I'm going. No, sometimes you just have to learn how to lay low and then plan your exit, right? That's what I would say, yeah.
When you mentioned that, like, laying low, and I remember that story when you are trying to be the best at work and trying to create Twitter story. You are doing great job and your boss didn't like it because he couldn't get the same result on the Twitter. Even you are trying to benefit the company, it's a good intention, but it was not supported, right? So how did you plan your journey? Did you have a mentor? How to exit? How you managed your emotion during that time? I want to know.
Oh yeah, 100% I had a mentor. Like my mentor even, let me tell you how good my mentor was. My mentor even sat down with my boss and said, how can we make this work better? And after spending an hour with me and my boss, my mentor realized that there is no way this is going to work. And he was like, you need to leave this team. And I said, look, unfortunately, last year I got a bad rating because of this bad chemistry. And so I want to stay to get a good rating before I actually leave. And so actually it was a planned out roadmap of, okay, get a better rating so you don't leave as if you're a below performer. Get a good rating so you're a good performer and then exit, right? And so it was a journey. So from the moment I decided I was going to leave to the day I actually resigned, it was like a year-long process, which I kept my mentor in the loop of, and we kept comparing notes, saying like, has something changed? Has the dynamic changed? Because there was a time when I wasn't getting the results the company wanted me to get, and they were not supporting me to get those results. But with my mentor's help, I started getting the results. So even after I got the results, the relationship was still unhealthy. And so that's why I realized, okay, no, I have to get out. So this was because I thought I was getting this unhealthy dynamic because I wasn't producing the results they wanted. But actually, when I did start producing the results and did even more than I was supposed to do, their response was, we'll get somebody better to do it. And so then you realize, okay, the time is ticking. And you know what? I think about it now. When I exited that company, it led to me going to work for Deliveroo. And I would say working for Deliveroo was the best experience I ever had. And actually, because I had that experience, today I now like working with startups because I worked in a startup. And so you kind of get that. You can see how your journey changes. So from working with blue chip companies, FTSE 100 companies, to now working with startups. That happened because I exited a company because it wasn't working. And I got into another company that was working, and it changed my perception of what the workplace looks like.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I can imagine that the 1 year journey is tough, and you need to work through emotions. And the one lesson that I learned from successful people like yourself is working through emotions, and how you manage to overcome this kind of emotional stages.
So I think the way you overcome the emotional stages, well, the way I did is you need to have things beyond work, right? So your family is critical. So having a family that understands you and recognizes when you're in a good place and a bad place, and having the safety of going home and knowing that you're safe, right? Find your safe space, right? It could be with your friends, it could be with relations, it could be with your family. Find a safe space. And I was blessed that my wife was a safe space that I could go to and say, hey, it's not really working out, I feel stressed. And then you get affirmation, right? You get affirmation from my children, you get affirmation from your family. So find a place where you can get affirmation beyond work. And then number two, find something that you love doing that's beyond work, right? I don't want to say hobby, because hobby sounds a bit funny, but have something that impassions you outside of work. And when you find that thing, hone into it. So for me, writing was one of those things. Investing in other people was one of those things. So even if I've had a really bad day, and I know I've got lined up to coach somebody or mentor somebody on that day, I can't take my negative energy into that conversation. I need to kind of recenter myself and bring positive energy so I can be a source of encouragement. And I think having something outside of work does really help you. So your whole life is not about work. So if your whole life is about work, guess what? If your work is toxic, that means your private life is toxic because you're carrying it through. So have a way of, siloing it so that you know that, okay, I'm in an environment where I can be myself. I'm in an environment where I can be free. And I'm in an environment where I'm not going to be judged. I'm in an environment where I'm going to be encouraged and I'm going to be respected. So I think having that was really, really helpful. And that helps you balance your emotions. I'm also a person of faith. So my church family was also very helpful. And it gave me a safe space where I knew that actually here, people are just going to love me rather than ask, where's my deliverables, right? So I think that's what you have to do to kind of get a balance, make sure you have a whole life rather than just a work life.
Yeah, I totally agree with support from the family and the loved ones and also life outside of work. But when you go back to work, so you know that you're exiting already, and how you manage to still stay focused during that job?
So I think the way you stay focused is because you realize that at the end of the day, it's not just a job. It is a place for you to express your creativity. I don't know, I'm going to use this illustration even though I'm not an artist, but my daughter's an artist. And I think my daughter's art expresses her creativity, right? It expresses her creativity. So even if she's having a bad day, she's not now going to put a bad day on her painting, right? Because she's trying to express creativity, and having a bad day is not that expression, I think, right? So I think for me, what happens is when I come into work and I think, okay, even though me and my boss are not getting on, there's still a job that I'm accountable to do. And I'm going to focus on getting that job done. Even if after I've done it, nobody likes it, I'm going to kind of focus my mind on getting what I need to do done and then leave the rest to everybody else. There's the expression we hear in films called, that's above my pay grade, right? But within my pay grade, there's certain things that my company is paying me to do and to deliver. And what I have to do is to say, even though I'm having a bad day, I am still accountable and responsible to deliver on what my company is expecting me to do. And I know there are people out there that they even do their best jobs, but then it's thrown back in their face. I just say to them, pick it up, go again, right? And you also have an end goal, right? That's why 5-year planning is helpful. Because if I know, as part of my 5-year planning, I just need to keep this job because I need 1 year experience in this job, it kind of motivates you to say, well, I'm just going to head down. It's not the best, but I'm just going to head down. Or if I know in my 5-year plan, I know that this is not what I'm going to be doing in 5 years' time, again, it just heads down. So I think having a plan does help you to kind of manage the immediate emotions.
Exactly, because you mentioned your mentor also recommended you to get a very good grade after you finish, and that kind of goal, so I need to get this done. It's 1 year, I'm gonna exit, but I want to be the best while I'm here. That kind of mindset probably helped you to stay focused, even you were not enjoying that job that much. I'm very happy that we covered a lot about healthy, unhealthy working environment and knowing when to exit and the power of mentorship and etc. And I know you have another hat to wear. You are an investor in African startups, and I want to know what inspires you to be an investor, and can you tell us a bit more about your journey being an investor?
So during COVID, I don't know if any of you have heard of Clubhouse. You remember Clubhouse during COVID? Everybody was going to Clubhouse because we couldn't get out, so we were all on Clubhouse. And I remember being in rooms for 18 hours, 19 hours, just talking. It was great. It's the same thing as Twitter Space now, etc. And when I was in Clubhouse, one day I was in one of those rooms. It was called Africans Funding Africa. And in the room, there was a guy there that was saying and explaining the idea of the fact that when you look at how much investment goes into Africa, I think it was I don't want to, I could be wrong quoting it, but let's say it's 10% of the total investment money that goes around the world. Oh, wow. Only 10% goes into the whole of Africa, not just into a country, but the whole of Africa. And he basically said that for us to change the narrative, we need Africans in diaspora or Africans on the continent to invest in Africa. And that's how I understood the concept of angel investment. And through that room, in that very room, I made my first investment. And I think since then, I've kind of opened my eyes more. And my own investing is more around solving problems, impact problems. Like, how can you solve a problem in Africa that is unique to Africa? Because it's not the same problem that you have in the West. Like in the West, you don't have many power outages, but in Africa, you have to come up with creative ways of creating your own energy. And so startups that are doing that, I want to invest in them. I want to be part of that journey. I want to be part of people who are trying to solve a healthcare issue in Africa, and access to medicine and all those kind of things. So I think that's kind of where it came from. It came from this desire to be one of those Africans to help fund Africa innovation, Africa entrepreneurship.
Very good mindset to have, and like, thank you so much for helping your own community. And it's like 10%, only 10% goes to Africa, and there are like,
I'm sure somebody's going to comment in the comment to say it's not 10%. They'll tell me the exact figure, but it's very low. Like that we can agree on. It's very low.
Yeah, I can see that. And you mentioned that you've learned how to invest during one of your corporate job, and you mentioned that you invest in the founder, the people, rather than a business idea. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so when I worked for Naspers and Process, one of the things I realized is that they didn't just invest in verticals or in a business idea. They actually invested in people. And so they got to meet the founder, hang out with the founder, and they almost like understand the founder, value the founder, and then it was almost like whatever the founder is then doing, they would invest in because there was a connection. So I think for me, I want to make a connection with the founder. I want to kind of understand what's your driver, what's your personal story. There was a lady who I've been working with, based out of the States, and her personal story was that she was sick, was told to go home and die, and she used functional medicine to cure herself, really. And because of that, she's now created this startup around functional medicine. Now, that's a very powerful personal story. It's called Wellness Wits out in the US. And because of that personal story, you kind of get a personal connection. And so whatever that person is doing, whether it's that business or another business, you kind of want to invest in them because you love their personal story. And I think that's kind of how I've come about it. So it's almost like before I write a check now, I almost want to kind of have a one-on-one conversation with you. What's your why? Why are you doing this? And don't get me wrong, I sometimes get it wrong and the investment doesn't work out. But majority of the time it does work out because now we have a personal relationship on top of the fact I've written you a check to make sure this works, that this succeeds. And so we have a joint incentive to make it work.
Thank you so much. And the more I do this entrepreneurship journey, the more I'm learning the power of the personal brand, having a personal story, right? Yeah. In addition to have a very strong personal story, personal brand, what kind of qualities should a founder have in order to be a successful founder?
I mean, I don't think we have enough time on the podcast to cover all of that. But I think let's start from the beginning. Be passionate about the problem you're trying to solve, right? I think that's the first thing. You need some level of passion. Not idiotic passion, but some level of passion. Passion that says, I know why I'm doing this. I know why I'm investing my time in this. And I'm passionate about solving the problem that I'm trying to solve. That's the first thing. Second thing, I think founders need to have staying power, right? Entrepreneurship is not easy because if it was, and this I know is true, 99% of startups fail. 99%.
Yes.
Right? That's this I'm sure of, right? And why do they fail? It's not because they didn't get funding. It's not because they didn't have the tenacity sometimes to push through. Because the reality is that most startups that are successful today, they could have folded, right? And if I take Deliveroo, I got to a stage where Will himself was going out on a bicycle and delivering food himself when there were no riders to deliver food. So that means he got out of his head that I'm the CEO. He's just like, I am just here to make this work, right? So it's all hands on deck. It's like things need to be done. So I think a startup founder needs to have this idea of all hands on deck. And we need to get rid of this whole Silicon Valley view that you're gonna be riding on planes. Maybe you will at some point, but in the very beginning, it's all hands on deck, passionate about solving the problem, passionate about getting the thing done, passionate about putting all your energy into this, passionate about, succeeding, right? A lot of startup founders, I found some startup founders that are not passionate about succeeding. It's almost like, oh, I'm just going to do what I need to do so I can get the next raise, right? Really? No, you need to go beyond that and really be passionate about what you're trying to do. And I think if you've got that, you will kind of push through all the obstacles that will come your way. There's a lot of obstacles as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely.
I came from a bit of an my mom was very entrepreneurial. My dad was a corporate person. So I've watched this growing up. I've watched that if you put the energy into it, you get the results. If you don't put the energy into it, you don't get the results, right? So
exactly. The passion would make you get through all the challenges you face, right? You have the energy to solve all the obstacles and challenges during your way. And I totally agree with that. I have a lot of questions, but for today, I feel like we covered a lot about your career journey and, for example, how we can do managing up, like in a healthy, unhealthy working environment, and how to seek mentor and what's the good mentorship like, and how we can achieve our career goal during that mentorship or career life, and how to practice stay at present and how to utilize in our career and also personal life as well, and also investment style. And actually your investment style can tell us like how a successful founder be a successful, like what kind of quality they have, passion, and also get things done. It's like there are so many qualities that the founder has in order to attract investors like yourself, for example. And the last question I want to ask is like, who can benefit the most from your book and mentorship?
So just for completeness, and we'll probably put a picture at the end of the podcast. I don't have them right now with me and I don't want to get up. But at the end of the podcast, we can put a picture up.
Yes.
I've written 2 books. One book is The Art of Managing Up for Career Progression. And the second book is Managing Sudden Change in Your Career Journey. When I mean sudden change, I mean things like you get promoted, or you get demoted, or you get fired, or for women, sometimes they go off and have a baby, and then their career is changed, if you like. And so those 2 books, I think the first book, Managing Your Career, Art of Managing Up for Career Progression. I think people who are in a corporate setting or even in a startup setting, that you work for somebody, you work for somebody, and sometimes actually you work for a board. Most founders work for a board. I think they will really benefit from the art of managing up for career progression. I think the other book called Sudden Change, How to Manage Sudden Change. I think anybody can benefit from that because we all experience sudden change. All of a sudden there's devaluation in currency. All of a sudden your goods that were safe are no more safe because the government said they're not safe or whatever. And so those 2 books are kind of to help people navigate career or navigate a sudden change in your life that impacts your business or impacts your career. So yeah, those are the 2 books. And what we're going to do is that we're going to make it a link available. So you can either get a digital copy of the book or you can get a personal copy through you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I personally learned a lot about your journey, how to excel in whatever you do, and the kind of mindset we need to have, and like seeking for support, and not only getting help from others, but to be appreciative for the help we are getting and how we can help others to get there.
I have one last question before we end. I know we're coming to the end. So maybe why don't you tell people about yourself, about your journey and what you're doing? Because I think there will be people that might be watching this for the first time that wouldn't really know who you are and your journey.
Sure, thank you so much. So I'm Uyghur and I came from China, being a minority, and I was always very ambitious, and so I came from a very small town, and my parents are telling me they're very positive people. They're not very rich, but they said, you are very smart and you can study abroad. So from a very young age, I always had a like goal or dream to study abroad. And went through a lot of challenges during the undergrad. I had some health issue. When I had health issue, I started how to be appreciative in life. It helped me to heal myself. And when I looked back at my journey, I'm always very interested in helping people to stay healthy. And during my undergrad, I also noticed that I'm very into health, and not only physical health, but also mental health, how like mental health is related to physical health, and how being appreciative can help us to heal ourselves as well. So I wanted to continue my journey with something related to health. So I wanted to pursue my master's in drug discovery and development. I got the best score at UCL. I studied very well, and I just wanted to figure out what I want to do after the graduation. And because when I was there, when I'm in London, in the UK, I needed to get visa. So there are so many things that I needed to think about, what I'm going to do, what kind of job I can take, etc. So I worked as a business development person in the management consultancy in the health sector. So we've been working with pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, because I liked working with people. So I feel like maybe sales would be a good fit for me. And I've learned a lot about personal interaction there. I had a good journey there, but I feel like there's still something missing, because I want to help people, and how I can help people using my knowledge, using my personality and skills. So, but I still need to get some salary. So I worked in another sales job to get salary, and because I got promoted as well. While I was doing that, I started my MBA journey. And during that journey, I'm constantly figuring out what I want to do as an entrepreneur, who I can help, what problem I want to solve. So that's a very good journey for me to understand myself a bit more. I started with an idea of helping people to stay healthy using AI technology, but it was not a good product market fit. So I needed to pivot.
And now you're here.
Yeah.
Hosting a podcast.
Yeah, hosting a podcast. So yeah, I pivoted a lot. I was like moving, I can say quickly, but it was not that quick neither. I tried to figure out what I want to do, what works, what doesn't work. But when I started my YouTube channel, I really loved it. I didn't have the best experience to be a podcaster at the beginning, but I enjoyed the journey of learning how to speak, how to be confident in front of the camera. And I tried interviewing people as well. The first 2 episodes was with people who I appreciate the most, and they really helped me to start that journey. And every conversation I had really was interesting, and I wanted to share their knowledge and experience to my audience, and I believe they can benefit from it. So since then, I try to reach out to people, like successful people, learn from their journey, learn from their success, and share it to my greater audience. And every time when I prepare for the podcast, I'm so excited to learn more about the person, and I prepare the question that I want to ask. I enjoy every moment of this journey. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
So people out there, if you're watching this for the first time, like, share, subscribe. That's how you can help her on her journey.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And thank you so much for my audience who are watching my videos and who subscribe to this channel. And without your help, I couldn't get here. So thank you so much. And I have a goal to achieve by next May, to achieve 1 million subscribers. I know it's an ambitious journey, but with my hard work, with my ambition, and with your help, and I believe I can achieve there. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button and keep watching these videos. And thank you so much. See you next time. Bye for now. Bye.